Soybean crushers said NOPA in April, but we did get a rare new crop soybean sale. Is that a sign of things to come?
Live from the tippy top of Hump Day via Farm Journal broadcast, this is AgriTalk. This afternoon, we'll chat with Karen Braun from Thomson Reuters. Directly following the news, Todd Bubba Horwitz from BubbaTrading.com. I'm handsome newsman Davis Michelson, and now, filling in for Chip, Chi-Town's favorite son, the Water Street Oneater from Zaner Ag Hedge, Ted's Hybrid.
Woohoo! Well, what's up, Davis? How you doing, buddy?
Long time no talkie, bro. This is awesome.
I know. Yeah, I think the last time I was even on the show was Commodity Classic, and it was just for a couple minutes anyways. But
that's not nearly enough, Ted. That's not enough, Ted. No, I
kind of agree, actually. So, keep that in mind, I suppose. We'll have to talk to Chip about that. But it's great to be back in the seat again. I thoroughly enjoy it, as you know, and it's great to talk to you, man. How's things?
Oh, for sure. I think everything's okay. We're at, if I had one thing to complain about, 71 degrees here in Kansas City, but cloudy. I mean, 71 and cloudy, what can I do with, I can't do anything with, there's nothing to do with that.
Yeah. I don't know, man. What's to do in Kansas City anyways? No, just kidding. But
don't get me started.
Yeah. No, if I'm being honest, man,
yep.
We've got blue skies here, but there's kind of a haze. It feels like we're going to do the Canadian wildfire dance again this year.
Oh yeah, that's what Chip was talking about. Was that yesterday or maybe the day before? I hadn't even heard that there were wildfires in Canada, much less fires large enough that they would begin to impact the skies and the atmosphere here in the U.S. And here we are
every year, man. Yeah. And there was that massive volcanic eruption a couple weeks back. I wonder if that will eventually affect us too. So,
yeah, good question.
The non-normal weather events that could be factors for the growing season. I don't think we'll have time to get into that with Karen today, but I definitely something to be thinking about, and something that might be a much bigger topic of conversation in a month or two.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. There's been a lot more and more talk about Colonel Phil, that July-August time period there, and some weather forecasters, I think, are feeling like it could be kind of a scraper to build yield through that period. Are you hearing anything like that?
Yeah, but you know what? It kind of reminds me a lot of last year, and I think we all know what happened there. So, yes.
Everything turned out
fine. The other thing I really do like to say is that we trust long-term forecasts about as far as we can throw them. And that's kind of how I feel on the 15th of May,
I like it. I'm going to hold on to that.
Right on, buddy. Yeah. Well, hey, listen, we definitely want to get to Todd. So do you have some news for today?
I sure do. Wheat futures began the day session with solid double-digit gains across the complex. However, futures were unable to hold on to gains and ended the day in negative territory. On day one of the Wheat Quality Council's HRW Wheat Tour, scouts found an average yield of 49.9 bushels per acre on samples taken from central and northern Kansas. Now, Ted, that's up from 29.8 last year. July SRW wheat today, futures turned back from resistance at the psychological $7 mark. Initial support now lies at 661 1/2. July HRW wheat futures 8 1/4 cents lower at 675. July SRW wheat fell 6 3/4 to 665 3/4. July spring wheat closed at 727. That's down 6 1/4 cents on the day. Man, we started off strong, didn't we, Ted?
Yeah, we did. And we have a much better winter wheat crop this year than we did last year. There is no doubt about it. And, after yesterday's reversal down day, today, we set a new recent high, reversed lower, and closed below yesterday's low. That is not a very good sign for that wheat chart. It's not a key reversal because it wasn't a contract high, but there will be people calling that a key reversal, although it is not the true definition of one. It's still something that a lot of technical traders look for topping action. Now, we might have just recovered the relative strength index, but either way, there is a big red flag now after today on the wheat chart.
Well, corn futures also erased early gains. Weak ridge building is advertised in the U.S. plains in the last days of May, and that could finally suppress some of the wet conditions that will prevail in the Midwest and part of the plains during the next 10 days. This, according to World Weather Inc. July corn broke through support at the 10-day moving average at 464 and 3/4. Next support lies at 460 and 3/4. July corn futures were 5 cents lower today, 462 and a half. September corn dropped 4 3/4, 473 and a quarter. December corn futures closed at 487. That's down 4 cents today, Ted.
Yeah, it's a weather market in corn. We did not do any major damage to the corn chart today, but we have taken back about 2/3 of Friday's gains on that surprisingly less than bearish expectations report that we had on Friday.
Well, the soy products charged higher this morning and took soybean futures along for the upside ride. But as strength in meal failed, soybeans were pulled lower. USDA did report daily soybean sales of 180,000 metric tons of beans to unknown destinations. Of the total, 120,000 for 23-24 and 60,000 for 24-25. July beans traded as high as $12.32 and a quarter, but ended the day just below unchanged. July beans all told a penny lower, $12.13 and a half. August beans dipped 2 cents, $12.16 and a quarter. Novi beans closed at $12.01, down 4 cents today.
Yeah, sad trombone there, Davis. Yeah, the one good thing that we had today and that happened before the open was the 60,000 metric tons to unknown for new crop. We are really hurting for new crop soybean sales right now. So to see anything at all is a little bit positive, but man, we really missed on that NOPA number. That was a big slowdown on the crush.
Well, quickly here, July cotton 78 points higher, 75.41. On the livestocks, June fats gained 7.5 to 178.25. August feeders 20 cents higher, 255.87 and a half. And June lean hog futures today 82 and a half cents lower at 97.50. Ted, we better get over to Bubba. Do we have Todd?
We got him.
There's Todd. Todd, how's it going, buddy? What did you see today? Kind of a big reversal lower in both beans and wheat.
Well, I think they're all overbought, and there should be a little bit of a sell-off because, again, I think they're going a lot higher. But I think that when you get to overbought conditions, you're gonna have some pullback, and then you add in a new all-time highs in the equities. Money's going to flow to the equities first. I mean, remember that the biggest push for the grain markets is always the alternative investment money coming in, not just the stuff for the hedging and for the farmers, but it's for the alternative investments. And right now, everything's flowing into the stock market right now.
Yeah, right. There's so much money going into the stock market right now. Did you say you think we're still going quite a bit higher in the grains, though?
I do. I think the patterns are great. I think they're technically sound. And each rally, as Davies and I did the show last Wednesday together, and I said they'd be higher, and they're higher this week than they were last week. And I'll say that next Wednesday they'll be higher than they are this Wednesday.
Okay. What's the fundamental driver behind that?
I don't need fundamental. I got technical. I don't care about the fundamentals. The prices are going to be driven, but if you want something fundamental, think about the inflation number, which is BS anyways. But if we're going to continue inflation, then these grains are going to have to inflate as well, and the shorts aren't going to be so aggressive they should be short them.
Yeah. So that inflation number actually came in lower than expected here this last time around. But you're right.
I mean, but overall, do you believe that number? Do you believe the number that they came up with? Number one, and number two. The only reason it's a little bit lower is look at the price of crude, which really signifies we're more close to stagflation than anything else.
Now, stagflation is an interesting concept. And, Bubba, I wish we had a whole lot more time to go all through that. But thank you very much for your input here, buddy. Have a great rest of your day. And, hey, everybody else, we are going to be talking to Karen Braun of Reuters here when we come back in just a few moments.
When news breaks, the newsmakers talk about it on AgriTalk with Chip Flory.
Welcome back to AgriTalk, everybody. This is Ted Seifert and Zaner Ag Hedge coming to you live from Chicago. And man, well, we've got a lot to talk about. I think, a couple of weeks ago, we didn't have so much. Now there's a lot more. Lots of interesting things going on. And that's nice. It's a really nice setup from a market's perspective going into a growing season. So, yeah, yeehaw. Well, our guest today is Karen Braun from Reuters. I've had her on quite a lot when I've been hosting, and she's one of my favorite guests. She's fantastic on Twitter. If you guys don't follow her, you have to. I have her Twitter up right now. to ask her specifically about some of the stuff on there. So I highly suggested you go ahead and follow her. And without further ado, Karen, how's it going?
Ed, it's going really great today. It's sunny here in Chicago, and but you kind of got me worried when you mentioned earlier the air quality. I noticed that yesterday, and I was thinking back to last summer and that tough time we had with the Canadian wildfires. So I hope that that's not going to repeat this year, but
Right.
not looking good.
No, nobody wants that. You know what? I do wonder though if that had an impact on the yields that we did end up with last year, because if you remember, August was we had a couple really warm bouts, right? But the fact that we weren't getting quite direct sunlight, I wonder if that maybe saved a couple bushels on that national average yield.
Yeah, I absolutely think it could have. It's impossible to measure that, I suppose.
Yeah, when we were on crop tour last year, it was a scorcher. It was one of the most uncomfortable days, I think, the second day that I've experienced on crop tour, which by the way, you're a master scout.
Ooh.
I just remember that. Yes, you got inducted last year.
Yeah, and last year's tour was definitely hotter than the 2012 tour, which was my first tour. So yes, yes on the heat.
Wow. Very cool. Well, a little history for everybody. Um, all right. So you said heat. I think wheat. I'd like to start with the wheat market. It has been really the biggest mover since the middle of April. From the lows that we had at the beginning of March for wheat at around, July Chicago 539, just under 540. We got almost to $7 today. Big turnaround pullback off that high then. It's been quite a rally in the wheat. What's been the driver of that? And what do you make of the last 2 days' activity?
I mean, I think Russia is absolutely the driver of this wheat market in the last at least several weeks. I mean, we had the hottest April on record in Russia's southern district, which is their biggest wheat producing district, and one of the driest. So you combine that with the super dry spring that they've been having and looks like they will continue to have. That's taking off some production there in Russia. And just today, Sovicon, one of the Russian agencies, reduced their estimate of the Russian wheat crop by about 4 million tons, and that was due to some recent frosts in some of the northern winter wheat production areas. So we've got frosts, we've got dryness, we've got some heat. It looks like Russia's struggling a little bit this year.
Yeah, and at the same time, I hear that Russian on-farm stocks, the Russian farmer is not selling fairly aggressively. Now, a lot of times that can go hand in hand. If they're not confident of the crop that they have coming, maybe they will hold on. But if there's a lot of last year's crop yet to sell, could that eventually pressure the markets as well?
I mean, definitely. And you have seen record Russian wheat exports in the last couple of months. And so they do have stocks and they can obviously export them. But really, once they get their current crop harvested kind of this summer, I think that we could see some impacts if that crop is smaller. And it is looking like agencies are cutting their outlooks. USDA came out with their outlook last week, a little bit bigger than what Sovicon was saying today, but there's definitely room for that to move around.
That's really interesting. Now, if you look at domestic wheat projections for new crop carryover, they're increasing by about 100 million bushels here. And again, I say domestic. Now, the global stocks number is a little bit tighter, minus China. And we're doing that, have been for the last few years. What's the bigger driver, and what do you make of that global carryover?
Well, I definitely think that a smaller Russian crop is a big player. Also, you have grain production projected to be down in Ukraine because grain production has not been profitable since 2021 in Ukraine because of all the problems they've had there with the war. So that's kind of pushing Ukrainian farmers towards oil seeds more. You also have, you have to look at Australia and, their crop is projected well off records because kind of this weather pattern that we're expected to see here in the next, over the next year. So you also have problems in Europe with all the rains that they've had, kind of, taking their production down. So So yeah, I mean, I think you do see some little bit of pressure on global wheat supplies in the exporters. Now, I will say that while we do have a stocks to use globally projected the lowest since 2007,
Mm-hmm.
we kind of been doing that projection every year now, for a couple years. So
Hmm.
I think that that narrative is a little bit worn out, so to speak. And so we really have to prove, hey, we are cutting, 24, 25 wheat supplies in the major exporters. This is the real deal. And that could potentially justify some higher prices over the next couple of months than we had been seeing earlier this year.
Right. Okay. So what you're saying is, if I'm reading between the lines, is that maybe the higher prices that we have are justified, but
Yeah,
not necessarily that we have to go sharply higher based on that global carryover or
yeah, exactly. I mean, because, we hit what 4-year lows earlier this year in wheat.
yeah.
So, so if you're really tightening things up here on the year, as much as USDA says that we are in those major exporters, then yeah, I mean, that maybe what we've done over the past several weeks has been justified. But yeah, the wheat crops are still in progress, so there's still much to be seen.
Yeah, and a lot of that strength that we've seen in wheat has come from short covering from the funds, right? Where do they stand
Yeah.
now at this point?
Funds are still pretty short, pretty short everything. I mean, with wheat, definitely not as much as they were a year ago. And definitely not as much as they were to start this year. But yeah, this last week we really saw a ton of short covering across, corn, soybeans, and soybean meal. But you also saw a lot of new long positions. So that's where you get these really, really big swings in the net position that the managed money holds. New longs and the removal of short positions really, really can swing things. But that doesn't mean that we're going to be headed to the long side necessarily, because there still is a ways to go, especially in corn and soybeans.
Yeah, so let's take that as an opportunity to switch over to corn. Corn has experienced some of that short covering and has experienced a bit of a rally, but certainly not to the degree of wheat. And corn itself has been down here the last couple of days after a strong day on the report day on Friday. Um, Between the USDA report, first of all, did you see any big surprises in your mind on that USDA report?
I think just seeing the year over year projections on U.S. corn carryout from USDA on Friday, seeing that it was really just a couple of percentage points of an increase on the year. When, back in February, we were talking about going from like a 2 billion in 23-24 to possibly 2.5 billion or more in 24-25. And now to only see that up by about 100 million bushels, that's a really big deal. And that kind of leaves some room here in the coming months. I mean, what if we don't get the acres that we expect that we're going to get? What if we do run into a weather problem here in the next several months? I mean, it really does give you some room to potentially chip away at that 24 or 25 balance sheet.
Yeah, right. So, two things there. One, like you said, I think we're trading a little bit of a different story or just a little bit of a less bearish story than what we had in our minds ever since we saw that Outlook Forum number. And then secondly, it really does kind of put more of an emphasis on the weather market. Now, we are a little bit behind planting. We could fall further behind. First of all, do you think we'll get the rest of this corn crop in the ground? And then secondly, do we have any historical impact on a little bit late planted corn as far as yield's concerned?
Yeah, I think that if we got the corn in the ground in 2019, we will definitely get the corn in the ground in
Yeah.
2024. But here's the difference. And I know that people like to go back to 2019 and talk about the yield drag in 2019 because of that super late planting that we had on corn. But you have to remember in 2019, the reason that US corn yield was so much lower than normal is because you didn't have a lot of high yielding, Illinois acres in production.
Mm-hmm.
So that really needs to be taken into consideration when you talk about yield impacts and late planting.
Yeah, right. Well, also keep in mind that, late planting usually is associated with a lot of moisture, and subsoil moisture could end up being a very good thing for this corn crop later on. All right. Well, we're having a conversation with Karen Reuters from Reuters, or Karen Braun from Reuters. Don't go away. We'll be back in just a moment.
Let's go to the markets page at profarmer.com and check today's closes. Where July HRW wheat futures were 8 1/4 cents lower at 6.75. July SRW wheat fell 6 3/4 to 6.65 3/4. July corn futures were 5 cents lower at 4.62 1/2. December corn futures closed at 4.87, down 4 cents today. July soybean futures were a penny lower at 12.13 1/2. November beans closed at 12.01, that's down 4 cents on the day. July cotton today 78 points higher, 75.41. On the livestocks, June fat cattle gained 7 1/2 cents to 178.25. October futures added 35 cents to 179.70. August feeder futures 20 cents higher, 255.87 1/2. And June lean hogs today 82 1/2 cents lower, 97.50. Get more market news every market day. Visit tryprofarmer.com. Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. I don't know what you're thinking. So call us at 855-4-TALK-AG and tell us what's on your mind.
Well, welcome back to AgriTalk, everybody. My name is Ted Seifert of Zaner Ag Edge, filling in for Chip on this, I'm going to say beautiful Wednesday. I hope it's nice and sunny and dry wherever you're at. We need it in a lot of places. So, Davis, how's it going, man?
Oh, I think we're okay. Yeah, everything's going fine. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Why is it not?
No, it's going well, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whew. Close call.
No, just wondering if you're still around, still paying attention.
Oh, standing by. You betcha.
Yeah.
No,
right
I dozed off a little bit during the commercial break, but
yeah, me too.
Yeah, I'm back now. I'm back.
Yeah. No, it's commercials. They're fun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right, man. Well, we've been having a conversation with Karen Braun from Reuters, and we were kind of talking about corn and delayed planting and everything like that. And just to kind of finish up with that conversation, Karen, are we that far behind in your mind?
You know, I don't think so. The weather forecast for next week does look a little bit wet. And I know that, wherever conditions are good this week, guys are really, really going hard. One of the concerns, though, is just planting into super wet soils. So if anyone's out there kind of pushing hard, maybe in fear of the return to maybe a wet pattern next week, I would say, people don't really like to plant the corn in super wet soils because obviously that can cause emergence issues down the road. So, you could have a little bit of that going on, and that could be potentially impacting yield locally. But yeah, widespread, I really don't think there's anything to definitively say yet, yeah, we need to start reducing our yield expectations. Now, whether or not you think we're actually starting at a 181 bushels per acre, like USDA says, that's another conversation.
Well, let's have that conversation. So do we think we should be starting at a 181 like the USDA is?
Oh, I've been on here a lot before talking about this, and every single time I say that USDA is starting too high, and I see where
slowed their roll a little bit, though.
They actually have by a little bit, but that is good to see. I just think it's really tough when you have not seen a yield, anywhere close to their trend line yield now for several years running, and it just, it just kind of reduces the, I guess, effectiveness of that original trend yield when you're just not, seeing anything close to that trend yield. And, one day we're going to come in and we're going to blow that trend yield out of the water. But obviously the last, several years haven't been doing that.
You could argue the weather hasn't been exactly perfect the last several years, and last year in particular, and yet we still ended up with a 177.3.
Right. But if you can say that every year there's a weather thing to explain away, then is that really an anomaly, or is that part of your trend?
Wow. Nice. Chicken or the egg type stuff. I like it.
Mm.
Well, continuing on the path of USDA and slowing their roll, earlier this week we saw CONAB numbers, and while they increased both corn and soybeans a little bit, there's still a big discrepancy between where CONAB, the Brazilian reporting agency, is and where the USDA is. Looking at your Twitter here, I see that their latest number for corn is 111.64 million metric tons, and the USDA is at 122. Now, what's the deal with that? Does the USDA have to come down sharply to get to the CONAB number? It's a pretty wide disparity.
Yeah, we've been kind of looking at this in the last several months as the corn and soybean estimates from USDA and USDA's Brazilian counterpart. And as they say it in Brazil, it's CONAB.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of just realized this, but they say it CONAB. So I will just say it the way that they say it. So CONAB, yeah, there is a 10 million metric ton difference in those 23-24 corn estimates. And I think that's USDA has higher area and yield expectations. And there's not really a huge precedent for this big of a disparity. So I'm not really sure if they're going to hold this into the next marketing year. It's not to be seen. I mean, obviously USDA published what should be a very preliminary 24-25 Brazilian corn estimate, and CONAB's not going to do that until later this year. So, we can't say anything about new crop. But, soybeans, they actually did the two agencies did come closer together this month, and actually USDA cut the Brazilian soybeans based on the flooding that we're seeing in southern Brazil, but CONAB brought their estimate up because they found a much larger area, and it was a very significant number of acres that I think it was a couple million acres at least, that they found in
Right.
soybeans over last month's estimate. So, I have yet to look into that and see where that came from. But yeah, I mean, they're still sitting 6 million tons apart. I think they have different export estimates too. So really, you have to look at the whole balance sheet, and you can't obsess too much about the production number without kind of seeing the fuller picture.
Yeah.
So USDA just has a bigger number on its export balance sheet for Brazil, and they have a really big Chinese import number. So they are kind of distributing this supply around.
Yeah. And I think the conversation has been is that CONAB. Yeah, I just learned that too at the data users meeting. But CONAB, I don't think is accounting for all of the acres that are getting planted. In fact, I mean, they're a government agency. They're underfunded just like ours are.
Probably even more so.
Yes, quite a bit more so. And so like the areas in the north that have been, I'm going to say, reproliferated because they're so close to the biggest deep sea grain terminal in the world that is newly up and running. I kind of feel like that's maybe slipping through the cracks. So if anybody's wondering, that's my take on why that disparity of CONAB versus USDA.
Here's something super interesting, Ted, is if you try to go on CONAB's website and look for their historical S&D numbers, for soybeans, you cannot find them back before 2020, 2021. So I think it's now 3 years ago, CONAB started to overhaul their past kind of soybean stock estimates. And I am not sure that they have completed that process. And the last time that they did this, actually both USDA and CONAB did this, they ended up going back and finding more supplies. And they had to change their balance sheets. And so USDA did that in 2019, and CONAB is still maybe in the process of doing that. So yeah, I mean, we're 3 years later here. So I think that you can maybe assume that CONAB's got some puzzle pieces still to put together beyond just the crop estimates.
Wow. Interesting point there, Karen. Thank you for bringing that up. That's fantastic. Now, I was going to go into crush because we had the crush number today, and we'll still talk about that. But since you brought it up, that Chinese import number that the USDA has for next year that we just saw on the report on Friday, 109 million metric tons. That's compared to 105 million metric tons for this current marketing year. 109 million metric tons. What do you think about that in the context that we have virtually zero export sales for new crop on the books for China?
Whoa, baby, 109 is huge. I mean, you see that number and you're like, wow. And then you see what China says. I mean, China is I think they are more than 14 million metric
Right.
tons below USDA because China came out with its own initial balance sheets for 24-25 also on Friday. So you see that huge disparity and a couple months ago, USDA said that they were going to stop using Chinese customs data to
Yeah.
estimate soybean imports. And so instead, they were using supplier data. So, like US exports, Brazilian exports. And because there was just a discrepancy in the volume of beans being shipped there versus what China was saying it was intake. And what's interesting is that that discrepancy actually came from the US side and not the Brazilian side. And obviously, we know that Brazilian soybean exports to China are way larger than US soybean exports to China. So that is super interesting that the discrepancy arose with the smaller US export program to China. So you have to wonder, is China purposely understating US trade, US soybean trade? I mean, you can go into all of these theories, but
Yeah.
but it is definitely important to point that out.
Well, it is important to point that out, especially in the context of, we just put on new tariffs on China, and China hasn't responded with any new tariffs on us, but has certainly responded with some, well, not great language, right? So I don't know. That has to be a bit concerning going forward. Speaking also of concerning, and I'm moving it along because we are running out of time in a hurry. Crush numbers came out way below almost 20 million bushel below expectations for this last month. What happened there?
Yeah, I think that some plants were offline for maintenance after they've been setting new crush records for what, at least 7 months running now. Every
Yeah.
single month so far this marketing year except for April. Also, I think you haven't seen crush margins where they were in the last couple of years, and I think that might be maybe coming into play. I mean, the prices for both soy products are near multi-year lows or have been. So, that will have an impact, on kind of U.S. processing plans. And I think that really also was a factor in the shocking crush number that we saw today.
Yeah, and just to give you a little bit more on those crush numbers, guys, or the crush margins, guys. The July crush right now is at about 83 cents. The 5-year average for this time is about $1.08. So, well below 5-year average in crush margins. I guess, myself included, analysts should have been looking at that a little bit more closely. Karen, thank you so much for coming on the show. You are wonderful as always. It's always my pleasure to have you on as a guest. And I think you just provide so much knowledge for everybody. Thanks again. Now,
Yeah,
everybody.
thank you.
Oh, yes. Now, everybody, we'll be coming back. Davis and I will be having a conversation, and come on back to AgriTalk.
They say that.
Our name says it all. AgriTalk. What more do you need to know?
Welcome back. That's from
I get the sense Ted's microphone is turned off or muted or something. What do you say there, Ted Seifert?
And we're back.
We gotcha. And we're back.
Yes, welcome back to AgriTalk, everybody. Sorry about that, guys, but yeah. All right, so listen, we were having a really fantastic conversation with Karen, and I was informed that there was a couple more points needed to be made, and when Karen asks, you do. So, Davis, if you don't mind, I want to bring Karen back in here for just a moment or two.
No,
in particular, totally. We had just kind of scratched the surface on Chinese imports and the fact that we have like virtually nothing on the books for new crop. But really, overall, we have like hardly anything on the books for new crop. And so, Karen, thanks for coming back. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so if you look at China's new crop book for, U.S. crops, there is 0 for corn, 0 for soybeans, and 0 for wheat. That's as of, I guess, early May. So that, I don't even know when the last time that we saw that was. But, for soybeans, you do have some unknown sales on the book. They are definitely below average, but they're there. And then, we did see that sale today. Very well could be China. But again, you talked about kind of the, U.S. tariffs on China and, things heating up again. And I don't know, maybe China has been waging a trade war on us silently for the past several months.
Silently, yes. China likes that silent warfare concept. I think that's really kind of their thing. So that has to be a concern really going forward. And, from a price perspective, if this is actually the case, like, what are your feelings on that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's not good if China is going to even further reduce its reliance on the U.S., especially when it comes to soybeans. But if you take a look at new crop corn and soybeans, it feels like prices are so much lower than they were a year ago, and that's true in the most active, like the nearby contracts. But new crop, it's
Right.
actually almost, I mean, very, very similar prices on the same date, last year. But the difference is that we have very different,
Outlook.
very different paths. I mean, last year at this time, we were crashing, we were coming down to like multi-year lows, but now, we've had this rally in the last several weeks. So, finally we've kind of met up with last year's,
Prices.
as of this time, and the outlook that we have now, like I said, in corn, it's actually not as bad as we thought. But when you look at the soybean balance sheet, and especially if China is not going to be coming in here buying U.S. beans, we could really load up the U.S. soybean balance sheet in a hurry.
Yeah, so I have kind of a really scary theory about soybean prices and that Chinese buying, and that is, I feel like soybean prices have to go and find the price that interests China into buying in. And if they're waging the silent war, that price could be a lot lower than what we would normally expect. So, let's say you take 20 cents off the price of soybeans and China doesn't buy and add to that new crop sales balance sheet or sales schedule that we have. Oh no, then we got to take another 20 cents and then another 20. And I don't know, man, I'm just getting very concerned about that. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they sneak in here and start buying. And maybe today was a positive sign for that. Predicting the future is a very difficult thing, but that is a concern, big one.
Yeah, I do think that China is going to come in here and buy some U.S. soybeans, undoubtedly. But, you look at USDA's, 24-25 Brazilian crop of 169 million tons. I mean, that's up 15 million tons on the year. That China is going to be taking a lot of those.
And it's a big number, 169, but I'm actually going to argue that's still too low. I think it should be a 171 or a 172. So, I mean, the USDA is continually have to revise those numbers higher. So, anyways, without getting too bearish, but hey, Karen, once again, thank you very much for your presence. You are fantastic and just a wealth of information, and I really appreciate you coming on the show. And this time, for real, have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, I always enjoy it, Ted.
Thanks. Well, Davis, sorry for the delay, man, but
hey, not at all. For sure.
We're back. Yeah.
Konabi.
Yeah. Konabi. Yeah.
Remember when
it's interesting when you hear the USDA folks actually saying Konabi, and you're sitting there in the audience going, man, I thought it was Konab. Whoops.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because I took high school Spanish.
Yeah. Well,
I paid attention for like a couple weeks there even. I was really trying.
That's good. Because, that's pretty close to Portuguese, I suppose.
It's kind of like Portuguese.
Yeah.
But apparently there isn't, there's a silent Y on the end of Konab, evidently. How are we just now hearing about this?
Omlut inflection things.
I'm reading the news about Konabi's estimates for like 12 years now, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right? I mean, old dogs, new tricks. We'll have to tell Chip about that. I wonder what he.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, see, and I'm also having trouble switching from Kiev to Kyiv. I tried it for a while.
Kyiv. I know.
I don't know what's the right thing to do, Ted.
I spent 2 years, and thankfully, I figured this out before now, but I spent 2 years not saying the Ukraine and just saying Ukraine, right?
Ukraine. Right.
I feel like it was the Ukraine when I was a kid. I don't know.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Or not when I was a kid, because
would it have been more?
It was actually USSR when I was a kid, but
that's the thing. Yeah. Interesting. And I also noticed you said the USDA.
Yeah.
I go back and forth on that one. I tend to be just a USDA guy. USDA says. But it is the United States Department of Agriculture.
Well, it's a department, so it's the, right?
It's a the.
Yeah.
I got the National Weather Service here, outlook, 6 to 10 day temperature. This gets us up through May 25. Looks like from, the southeastern third to almost half of the country, above normal temperatures expected. Near normal, just a strip through the middle, and then below normal temperatures all the way from the northwest corner of the country to the middle of the country. On the precipitation in the 6 to 10 day, it's going to be wet everywhere north of south. How's that sound? And if we flip over to the 8 to 14 day, about the same. We lose a little bit of the precip in the 8 to 14 day outlook. Ted Seifert from Zaner Ag Hedge. Bro, what a great conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to fiddle around with our little radio show today, man. We really appreciate you.
You know I love doing it, and I will be back anytime you need me. And sure, I can be a guest once in a while too. But yeah, thanks for having me, man. Absolute pleasure. Awesome show. Awesome. Big thanks to Karen. And hey, everybody have a wonderful day.